welcome to everyone. We are going to be talking about our new project, Be Body Positive, today, and talking a bit about the importance of early intervention when it comes to disordered eating and negative body image in young people. We have a group of parents and carers here with us today. And we also have some panelists here who I'd like to introduce you to. On the panel today, we've got Sabrina. Sabrina is one of our parent reps who's been working with us on the Be Body Positive project. We also have Dr. Salma Suri and Dr. Katie Quayle, who are joining us from our NELFT eating disorder services. And we also have Tiziana Sylvester, who is from ELBA, who was working with us on the project when she was working for ELBA. I'd also like to introduce you to our partners who have worked on this project. So this project has come about working with North East London and East London Foundation Trusts, Barnardo's, ELBA and Infused Media. We are going to be talking about personal experience today. So before we do, I just wanted to let you know that there are some support services that you can go to if you feel like you need support now. There's the Beat Eating Disorders helpline. There's also ELFT and NELFT crisis lines, and you can also get in touch with Samaritans. I just wanted to say that please only share what you feel comfortable sharing today. Don't feel pressured to share anything you're not comfortable with. Sabrina will be sharing a bit of her story, and so please do be mindful with that too. And just to reiterate that we are recording this session as well. So what is Be Body Positive? Be Body Positive is a new website containing information and resources covering disordered eating and body image. And it's been written for young people, parents, carers, and health professionals. And why did we come up with Be Body Positive? Unfortunately, it's become very clear in the past few years that the number of young people that are dealing with disordered eating, eating disorders and negative body image has increased exponentially. The number of young children children and young people admitted to hospital for eating disorders has risen by 35% in the past year. Almost 10,000 children and young people started NHS eating disorder treatment between April and December 2022. And 3 out of 4 children as young as 12 dislike their bodies and are embarrassed by the way they look. So what these stats tell us is that something needs to be done. And, oh, sorry, just quickly to the people that are asking for the Menti code again, don't worry, I will be giving you that code. Well, actually, I'll just go back now and get you the code, just quickly. Yeah. So it's 512, oh, sorry. 51289605. I will also be giving this code again slightly later in the talk too. Thank you, Salma. So yes, as I was saying, early intervention is really, really important when it comes to disordered eating. That's because it works on a spectrum. So on the one end, you have severe eating disorders, and on the other end, you have intuitive eating. Disordered eating kind of sits between those, and it can include behaviours such as skipping meals, overeating, binge eating, extreme restriction of calorie intake, and excessive exercise. And disordered eating really are all of those behaviours or habits that are not severe enough to meet the criteria for a specific eating disorder. And the reason why early intervention is so important is to try and intervene and offer support earlier before it becomes a crisis. So that's where Be Body Positive comes in. It's really been designed as another kind of early intervention support tool.
Welcome to Be Body Positive, where we hope you will learn more about your relationship with food, your body, and your mental well-being. We have a range of sessions for you to navigate through, learning as you go and taking part in quizzes, guess a celebrity task, and much more. We hope these activities will help you to learn more about a range of topics, including how to nourish your body, and building a positive relationship with your body image.
So the aim of Be Body Positive is to support young people as they reflect on their eating behaviours and body image. And 3 psychoeducational self-guided modules were created by experts, but then co-produced with young people, clinicians, and parents and carers. And I'll take you through some of those modules now. So our first module is called Normal Eating and Body Image. And this covers things like intuitive and balanced eating, feeling comfortable in your body, breaking free from diet culture, and recognizing the power of social media. It's packed full of quizzes and exercises, and there's a real interactive element to it too. One of our young people testers said, it's very simple and clear to understand and personalized, which makes it engaging and fun. Our second module is called Fussy Eating versus ARFID. So it became clear that there's a real lack of resources on ARFID, which is avoidant restrictive food intake disorder, out there to support young people, but also to support parents and carers who are trying to help their children or the people in their care. So in this module, you'll learn things around surrounding understanding hunger, managing anxiety around food, and supporting a young person who might have ARFID. There is also information on there for professionals too, which kind of follows more about how to diagnose. One of our parent testers said, a no-nonsense resource like Be Body Positive would have been very useful early on to support my child's difficulty with eating. And finally, our last module is called What is Disordered Eating? This is really about an introduction to disordered eating and learning to spot the signs, making that distinction clear between disordered eating and a diagnosable eating disorder, also supporting emotional regulation and finding ways to help. One of our programme leads for mental health in schools said, Be Body Positive is an excellent toolkit for anyone working with young people. It breaks down expert knowledge into engaging content and resources. As well as the kind of psychoeducational modules, we also have stories on the website because we know that it can be really helpful for young people to read that, about an experience that may be similar to them, and also it could be the inspiration that they need for their own recovery too. And we've worked with young people from our own eating disorder services on these stories. We also have resources. This is something that when we were developing the site, parents asked for specifically, so almost like a blog style resources list. And this is something that is constantly updated. Finally, we have a support services section of the site, and this is almost like a map of local support services. And this is very much in development. You'll notice when you go on the website that everything that all of the support services that are on there at the moment are quite London-centric, and that's because we, working for North East London and East London NHS Foundation Trust, have included all of the support services we know. This is a bit of a call out really. If you know of any local support services at all, please do email them to us. hello@bebodypositive.org.uk. You can see our email at the bottom there. This is something that we're kind of constantly working on to grow and expand the amount of support services we have to include the whole country or the whole of the UK. So finally, in a digital world where negative and harmful views of body image can be difficult to avoid, Be Body Positive aims to carve out a nourishing and safe space. We hope young people will come to the site and learn how to feel at ease in their bodies. I'm just going to share the Menti code one last time, just for anyone who may have missed that. So that's 51289605. And you can just go to www.menti.com. I'm now just going to show you the website itself quickly before I'll pass over to Sabrina, who'll be showing you bits of content that she has personally found really helpful in her journey. So this is our website. You'll notice here we have a whole section dedicated to parents and carers. So you can find content just by going to the Parents and Carers tab, but you can also view all modules, and you can see all of the different modules we have here, and the content for parents and carers. You'll notice that under what is disordered eating, the parents and carers content is coming soon. We hope to have that up as soon as possible. The website is very much still in development. What I wanted to highlight just before I pass over to Sabrina is the fact that you've got all of this content here which you could fill out as a parent yourself, and that's to educate yourself and learn how to start kind of modeling body positivity. But you can also signpost young people to content that they can fill out themselves. This is content they could do on their own, they could do it with a friend, they could even do it with you, and you could sit side by side and fill it out together. So just to be aware of the different ways that you can use the site. Wonderful. And just in terms of resources are here, and this is the support area of the sites, with loads of different support networks that you can find. So I'm now going to pass over to Sabrina, who will be kind of guiding us through her take on Be Body Positive.
Thank you, Nina. Thank you again. Hello, everyone. I'm Sabrina. I'm a parent to two children, aged 16 and 13. My son who's 16 and my daughter who's 13. I'm just going to speak a little bit about my story and how it impacted me. So my son first experienced body image negativity when he was constantly pressured by his peers at school, saying that he was overweight and not good looking. He was teased about not being good at playing football because of this, and was never given opportunities to be included. He felt isolated when he was not included, and he wasn't so much into gaming, but preferred to read instead. He enjoyed learning and found it difficult to fit in with his peers. It was difficult because he never wanted to talk about it. And I think that's difficult for boys. And he didn't want to get help. So I spoke to my GP. He was referred to CAMS, where he spoke with a psychologist, and he was able to be heard, which was very important. The school had a poor pastoral system and were not convinced that there was a problem. My son lost his confidence in himself. He would often isolate himself and become very angry and frustrated, and would then eat for comforting, to comfort himself. We worked through this with a psychologist, which helped him and me build on our relationship, which was quite torn at the time. We went from not speaking to speaking more, and I was thinking of how to focus on his strengths. His strength was that he wanted to help people and become a doctor. My daughter first experienced body image negativity when she started secondary school, a very crucial time in her life. Every day she was doing something different, from shaving her legs, putting lots of makeup on, to finally not wanting to eat at all. She stopped eating at school and was exercising more at home. She kept saying that she needed to get rid of her belly fat. I did not understand the extremity of what was going through her, and did not know that she had stopped eating at school. She would often say, "Mum, do I look okay? Is my hair okay?" I remember that it was difficult for her to leave the house without worrying all the time. I then realized that she was bullied by peers about the way she looked. I remember that there was a group called Blackpink that was really popular on social media. She spoke about how she wanted to be just like them. I realized how insecure she had become about her own image. As this was pre-COVID and then continued during COVID, mental health support was difficult to access at the time. Our relationship became strained, and I was constantly trying to get help from the school. This failed my daughter, and she continued to become more and more insecure. Our relationship became very strained, and I was constantly trying to get help from the school. This failed, and my daughter continued to be insecure. It was when I met Nina and Be Body Positive that I learned about what it meant to have a negative body image. I understood that this was very common and that there was help. I learned that what I can do as a parent to help not just my daughter, but also my son. He really helped the event for the launch of the Be Body Positive app, and even took part in speaking about his experience. He could relate to what had happened, and my daughter too felt listened to. That was just something that was very personal to myself and my journey with both my children as a single parent. But now I'm introduced to Nina and the Be Body Positive app. I'd like to take you through some of the slides that I found most helpful, and I'd like to share with you. So this is the compliments page. This page is here to think about the strengths of your child. So on here, we've got ideas around what it is you can think about, some of the strong points around your child. Remember, this is about empowering your child and helping them to see their strengths. So you've got ideas that say, you're strong, it's nice seeing such kindness. Remember, it's not focused about what they look like. So as a parent, it helped me to focus on positives and appreciate what is good about your child. If we can move on to the next slide. Negative. So here, it focuses more around where young people are encouraged to think about how they look all the time by society. So as parents, we have to remember that we can try and model body positivity by complimenting them on things that are not focused on their appearance, and more about who they are as an individual. For example, I remember how I complimented my son for always being on time, something I find quite challenging sometimes. Also, how he was brilliant at explaining things that he learned at school. That sounded really complicated, but he helped me understand those. If we can move on to the next slide. And my favorite, the hot cross bun model. I really like this model. It's a way to break down the process of what's happening. So here we have steps, and I can show you the steps. We've got at the top, we've got thoughts, then we've got emotions, we've got physical sensations, and then we've got behaviors. I'll show you an example on the next page. So this is a scenario. We've got Kim here. Kim is worried about her image, where she wears a swimming costume for the swimming lesson for school the next day. When she tries it on, she thinks that she looks fat and ugly. This is something that she has in her mind. She imagines her classmates laughing at her. The following day, she physically feels sick, shaky, and scared. Here you can see the breakdown process of the unhelpful behavior. So if we focus on her thoughts, we've got that she thinks she looks fat and ugly. Her emotions are that she is feeling ashamed, disgusted, and embarrassed. Her physical sensations at the bottom are that she feels disgust, uncomfortable, shaky, and sick, which are all very real to her. As a result, her behaviors are avoidance, and she misses a school and swimming lesson. We have another example on the next slide. Another scenario is of Rob. So during lock time, Rob is catching up with his friends on Zoom. He notices his reflection and becomes self-conscious. He thinks that he looks unattractive and that his friends will be judging him on screen about his appearance. He feels ashamed, embarrassed, and has low mood. He told his friends he was feeling tired and needed to go to bed. He logged off of Zoom. I'm sure this is something many young people find difficult and therefore turn off their cameras, especially during lockdown. If we go through the process, we can see that Rob's critical thoughts are about his appearance. His emotions are that he feels embarrassed, ashamed, and has very low mood. His physical sensations at the bottom show us that he's feeling disgust, uncomfortable, is uncomfortable with his temperature rising, and is very tearful. As a result, his unwanted behaviours are avoidance and to tell his friends that he's tired and logs off of the Zoom call. We can go through another example on the next slide. Here we have Sam. Sam is scrolling through social media. I think this one is Instagram. Sam notices a celebrity picture and compares his teeth, hair, and skin, not to be as great as the celebrity. Sam thinks that his classmates must notice these. He feels incredibly anxious. He then sits at the back of the class to avoid talking to anyone. If we work through the steps again, we can see that his thoughts are about his appearance. He thinks his teeth are not as white, his hair is not as smooth, and his skin is not as clear. His emotions are that he feels embarrassed, feels ashamed, and again, low mood. His physical sensations are that he feels disgust, uncomfortable, his temperature is rising, and also he's very tearful. So the behaviors that he ends up having is avoidance and self-isolating. If we can move on to the next slide, we can work through these. So here is an example for you. If you can think of a challenging scenario, think of a time where your child has faced difficulties with their body image, and see if you can use the hot cross bun model to go through the steps.
If it's a scenario that you are willing to share, feel free to either put it in the chat, or you could also use Menti. It might be something not too personal that you feel like other parents would be able to learn from, but please don't share anything you don't feel comfortable with. Some really powerful experiences here. So I hope you don't mind me reading this out. My daughter is 9. She started her periods and has developed a need to bra. She gets embarrassed and goes red. She wears baggy tops to try and hide the fact she has developed. Wonderful. Thank you very much for sharing. I'm going to leave this now to return to the slides so that Sabrina can continue showing us her content, but please do continue to share your experience if you feel like you can.
Thank you, Nina. Okay, here we have the social media comparison for media literacy page. What a brilliant page. I just want to ask everyone, is everyone familiar with the challenges for young people around social media? There's a question you can answer in the chat. Not everybody knows about social media and the challenges that are out there. So there's platforms such as Instagram and TikTok, and they impact the way that a young person views themselves. It might be familiar to quite a few people out there. This can have a positive or negative impact on the young person. And it's always a good idea to talk to your child and see what their interests are. I remember, especially with my daughter, this helped me build a trusting relationship with my child, as well as being able to support them when they were not sure about something they viewed. Sometimes young people follow certain people as it's a group-led thing with their friends. They might say something like, well, my friend follows this, so I should be doing it too. It helped me stay connected and involved in my child's interests to support any unhealthy decisions that could impact the way that they think. If we can move into the next slide, I'll show you some things that you can think about. So this is the media checker platform. Sometimes it's not easy to think of what questions to ask with your child. So the list of examples are who created it, who paid for it, what's its purpose, who is the target audience, who benefits, who is harmed, who or what are the sources of this information, in what way has the image been manipulated, and what are the values of this message? Do I agree with the values it represents? These are just some examples that you can think about with your son or daughter that they may not be thinking about before. I want you to remember that it's not easy going through this process. And as a parent, it does become very scary. And we don't always know the right answer. You want to educate yourself and your children to speak about things, to give them a voice. Remember, you don't know what exactly it is that has a positive or negative impact, but what you say to your child does matter. You want them to go away thinking about something positive rather than negative. So when we compliment our children, sometimes the way that we speak to them can make a huge impact. Well done sounds better than well done. The most important thing I'd like to share is that your relationship with your child is most important. The more that they can speak to you about things, the more that you can help each other through this. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Sabrina. I'm just going to return to the Menti just so we can continue to see your comments from everyone that's here today. Thank you to everyone that's contributed. I'm now also going to open it up to a Q&A. So there is the Q&A function on Zoom. If you go to the panel at the bottom of the screen, you'll see it. And if you have any questions that you'd like to ask us or some professionals that are on the panel, please do. Any questions are welcome. And yeah, opening it up to you now. So we have a question. How do you respond when your child is telling you they are fat and disgusting? That's a big question. I'm going to pass this over to our clinicians that are on the call.
It's really tricky, isn't it? Because these are things that plague children constantly, and when we hear that a lot in our clinical work, but also generally as a mum, I hear that a lot, you know, from my children and what they tell me about their friends. I think one of the things we do is really unpick what they mean by that. So even the word fat can have many different connotations. and very sort of different understandings, especially depending on how old the child might be. Sometimes they call each other fat as an insult, or actually the person's genuinely got an experience of feeling very different. So I think it's about really understanding what that means for your child specifically, where they've heard that, what that means when they talk about it amongst their friends, and then validating. So our module that Katie and I have taken the lead on is a lot about validating the emotion behind what is being said, and learning to sort of actually look behind what we can see more immediately, and understanding what is the emotion that we're really looking at here, which takes a bit of time and practice. It doesn't always come naturally, especially as parents. Our response is to feel defensive for our child, or feel like, who said that to you? You know what I mean? Or why do you feel like that? You mustn't feel like that. Or just saying, well, don't feel like that, just sort of saying it directly. So it's about really understanding it from their perspective, and what they might also mean when they're saying things like that. Don't know if you want to add anything, Katie.
No, I think you touched on the things I was going to say. I think it's often the case that there's that pull to want to jump in and reassure and say you're not, or it's not the case. And as you say, like maybe become quite defensive, anything to reduce that pain and that hurt that's caused. But I think it's really important to validate that their experience. And sometimes when we jump in and we do that, kind of, it's not the case, or you're not fat, actually it really invalidates how they might be feeling. So it's really important to stick with that feeling first, to help them feel understood by you, and that in itself will just open up more communication and allow you to support them better.
Thank you, Katie and Salma. There's another question in the chat, which is about whether you can take all the information on the website. Yes, absolutely. The information on the website is open to everyone. It's a website, so everything's free and easy to access. We've shown you, honestly, just one tiny portion of the website. And when you do have time to go on there, you'll notice that it follows like a journey. Each module has multiple sessions for you to go in and explore and take your time and reflect. So I just want to make that really clear. Another question that we have on mentally, actually, which is, my 13-year-old daughter is worried about a friend's disordered eating. What advice can I give her, Ari, how best to help her friend? That's a really great question, because actually young people can also offer some the best support to their peers, just based on the website, but then I'll pass over to the clinicians on the call. It's just that young people can go and complete the modules on body image and normal eating, which tells them more about how to feel good in themselves and comfortable in their body, but also a little bit about kind of modeling body positivity. So being able to kind of radiate body positivity, and it ripples outwards, you know. If just having one person who, you know, is choosing not to engage in diet culture and choosing to not engage with kind of fat talk and saying, oh, I look so fat today, you know, things like that, it has such a positive impact. So I would say that that's probably one of the things that a young person could do if they're worried about a friend, is really kind of educate themselves, and that will ripple outwards. But I'll pass over to Katie and Salma in case they have any other advice on that.
Yeah, I really like what you said there, Nina, which is that actually it could be one person doing something that almost like normalizes eating. Because I know with teenagers in schools, a lot of kids, they don't have breakfast, they'll sort of pick at something that they buy in the tuck shop, and actually that might be how some, you know, that might be what they're doing at that time, but actually there might be someone who's also struggling with their eating who would really benefit from a friend just sitting with them and just eating together, which is such a simple thing to do, but it would just be so lovely if one person could step up and do that. So I would say the advice could be not necessarily in the direct conversations, but in the things that you do together, that might actually just positively influence that friend. Tough for 13-year-olds, as though I would say it's really hard for 13-year-olds to model ideal behaviors, because it's just, you know, it's a harsh world, isn't it?
I guess I was really encouraged to hear that she's coming to you as a parent or carer and speaking to you about like her worries as well. And I think that's really important that she's also got that space and that kind of relationship to be able to share some of those worries with you, because it sounds like she's probably someone who's really aware of other people's emotions and experiences, and so it's helpful for her to have that space to share and acknowledge those.
So another question that we have is, how do you manage when a teen is obsessed with calorie counting? So I think I can speak from kind of the information that's on the website, but there's a lot of information on there about where kind of calorie counting comes from in society, and where that pressure comes from. And a lot of the time it's to benefit, you know, it's like a capitalist kind of to sell something is when calorie counting becomes really important, which means that it's really, really difficult to avoid when society is kind of telling you to go on these diets and to count your calories, and it's really, really difficult to avoid that. It's all over the media, and it's all over Instagram and social media. I think it's really important to be critical and to be able to ask critical questions about where that's coming from. But I think I'll hand over to the clinicians in the room on that one as well.
I think this is a really tricky one, isn't it, Samra? I think quite often being really aware of these different behaviours, being able to monitor them, noticing kind of changes and knowing when to seek more support about it, maybe speaking to your GP and getting some advice from like local teams to kind of help you navigate that and think about kind of more around the context of like your young person, and what feels appropriate and actually what feels like it might be becoming quite harmful behaviours. I'm really aware that I think there's probably a whole other conversation that we could have around like how to manage calorie counting, but I guess being able to monitor it and seeking more support where we could think more about like the context of your young person is really important.
There's some really helpful stuff on the website around the sort of like the diet cycle as well, where you know, it's sort of like that vicious circle of becoming obsessed. So yeah, similar to what Katie was saying around, how is that affecting behaviors? So they might be obsessed with calorie counting. What does that mean in terms of their preoccupation with it? And I would completely agree with Katie that if that is a very high preoccupation with lots of associated behaviors, then it sounds like that might be a referral into a specialist service, at least for an assessment. But otherwise, I think there are lots of resources on the website around information around the unhelpful sort of diet cycles and traps that people can fall into.
Thank you. Another question is, any thoughts on how to use the hot cross bun once filled in? So once you've gone through and filled in all of the different sections, so would you use it to validate, reflect on, or change thoughts and behaviours? I'll pass over to the clinicians for this one.
I think the hot cross bun we use as almost a bit of a starting point to understand what might be happening in that cycle, to think about how different thoughts or feelings might be linked to different behaviours or emotions. And so it really is an opportunity just to map out what we think might be happening, or to get a better understanding of what's happening. And then from that, it is about kind of using that understanding to create change. And so it could be done in lots of different ways. And when you access the website, it will be one of the earlier parts in building that understanding. And then the website does go on to offer lots of different strategies and techniques and skills that you can use to help implement changes around that.
Thank you, Katie. This is quite an interesting question. So how do you encourage exercise to an overweight, which has been confirmed by the GP teen, without body shaming them? I think that's a really kind of complicated question, actually. And again, I'm going to pass over to the specialists on this one.
One of the things I would say is that you know your child best, and so you know their temperament, you know what they might or might not respond to, and you know, I think it is about creating those really positive sort of lifestyle, you know, general lifestyle sort of behaviors, but absolutely not with the focus of the weight or the shape or the weight loss as a target, but something you know that is enjoyable, you know, encouraging physical activity as a family or in a team sport where there's, you know, that it is an enjoyable process. I think those are the kinds of things that even as a parent, you know, I have an 11-year-old, you know, it's about encouraging it in a really positive way that is not putting a spotlight on that person. It is just saying, you know, we want to, you know, be healthy, and actually not even necessarily naming it in that way, just as an idea about going for a walk together or something like that. I think sometimes really specifically naming it can sometimes plant that seed as well, which might be negative.
We have a question in the Q&A, which is about, as a TA working in a primary school, I've come across young children with body negativity. Any advice on how to help would be appreciated. This is a really interesting question because the content that we designed for Be Body Positive was written originally for ages 11 to 16. And that was kind of the target audience for the young people. However, when we did our evaluation, we did actually have a family that came along, and there were some younger children that came along to the evaluation, and they sat with their older siblings and they went through the website too. And what we found was actually that young children are under just as much pressure, and you know, younger children are on social media and they are starting to learn from a really, really young age, you know, that to feel negatively about their body or to believe that there's this perfect body that they should be aspiring to. And I think that just because our content was originally kind of designed for 11 to 16-year-olds, that doesn't mean that older children or younger children can't engage with it. I think a key thing, though, with kind of younger children is to bear in mind that the language that's used is more suited to an older child. So it might be something that they would want to do with a trusted adult. So you know, within your school, is there a mental health lead that would be able to go through it with a child, or is there a parent or a carer that would be able to go through it with a child? It's kind of, it becomes more of a team collaborative thing rather than just signposting this to an 8-year-old, for instance, and saying go ahead and have a go, because they might want support or they might need support. Another question. So my child's diet is sometimes unhealthy, so sweets, ultra processed foods, etc. But I'm frightened to bring attention to eat, as I worry it might backfire and they stop eating altogether. What do you recommend to tackle that? So I'm going to pass this over to the clinicians. But just to say quick before I do, actually, that there is a lot of content on the website which is about normal eating, and what you'll find on there is that there's a lot of diet rules and kind of rules around food generally, like what's good and what's bad. And I think it might surprise you to realize that, you know, having sweets and having ultra processed foods is not necessarily all bad, and that it's quite important actually to dismantle some of the rules there are around food. But I will pass over to the clinicians who know better than I do on this one.
I think that's really helpful, Nina. I think going through that part of the module as a parent can be really helpful to for, I guess, supporting your own thinking around some of those perhaps family narratives around food and diet cultures, what might be good and bad. Do we use that language without even thinking about it? Do we have that kind of mindset about different foods? Thinking about what children and young people are exposed to kind of in social media and different social messages. So even just having a bit of a think and using the modules to help kind of stimulate some of our own thoughts about that can be really, really useful.
Those could be the modules that you do together with your young person, because actually, as Katie and Nina have said, it's like shared learning, isn't it? It's actually, we've all got those ideas about what is a healthy diet, what is it, and we keep hearing so many different things about something being a superfood one time and then not good another time, you know. So it's really, I think it would be really informative to learn together actually on that, and you know, maybe then plan about how you might incorporate certain things into the meals that you plan, you know, for that week for the family. So it's sort of really a lot of shared learning and learning together, I think would be really, really helpful.
Thank you, Selma. So I'm going to bring this to a close now, but I just wanted to say a huge thank you to everyone who took part today and everyone who shared their experience. I've noticed there's quite a few experiences that have been shared where, you know, I think it's really important to say that Be Body Positive, while there's a lot of kind of expert knowledge that's gone into it, it is an early intervention tool, it's early support, and it's not treatment. So always seek treatment if you're worried about your child. Be Body Positive is not a cure for anything. It's really just to start you thinking and start you kind of educating yourself on some of these topics so that you can offer better support. But it's absolutely not treatment. I just want to kind of clarify that, and help is always there. So do seek out treatment with the GP or kind of eating disorder services, but also Beat Eating Disorder offer a really amazing helpline, which I shared earlier, but if you Google Beat Eating Disorders, you'll be able to find their helpline. It's the first thing that comes up.